Hello and hi, welcome back to Nobody Asked Though. We are currently working our way through Nicole Kessinger's first interview using statement analysis to examine her language and using her own words, the words that she chooses, extracting more information than what she intends to put out. All right. So we're going to take off from where we finished last time. Now, I haven't listened to the last video, so I think we went through and he said with me, it made him feel like he could really start talking about things that excited him. And then I think we moved on to, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact we had things in common. So what I want to do first is I want to zoom back out and zoom back in, because as you know, if you've seen this channel before, that language analysis, statement analysis, forensic linguistics, deception detection, whatever you want to call it, takes into account context, okay? We don't have opinions, we don't make assumptions in statement analysis. We use purely the language provided by the subject or the speaker, okay? We have to take into account context always. It's very important in statement analysis. So sometimes with Nicole, because her nonsense is very thick and deep, sometimes we have to zoom back out to get a full picture of what's going on, the context in which she's talking. We have to remind ourselves the context in which all of this is taking place, and then zoom back in to examine the language sentence by sentence, word by word, okay? So I'll quickly read through the block that we are covering here, because sometimes she goes into these long blocks where even if the detective starts talking, she just talks over him as if to say, I'm not done. You stop talking because I'm not going to stop talking, right? It's so rude. Anyway, so the block that we're covering at the moment, the question was who was Chris, right? Nicole, I think he's an introvert. I would consider him to be like I don't want to say he's a very reserved individual. I think he's probably more reserved around other people. I think he emphasized to me that one of the reasons that he really enjoyed talking to me is because he felt like he could get out of his shell. He said around most people, he just didn't really feel the need to talk and converse. And it wasn't just in his home life, just in general. It wasn't something where he's an introvert. And he said with me, it made him feel like he could really just start talking about things that excited him. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that we had things in common. So with me, I think he was a little more outgoing, but even then I would still consider him to be an introvert. Every time I start recording, he wants to go out. I don't think he can take Nicole's nonsense. Okay, so that's the block. We're nearly to the end of the block. It's very exciting because the next part's coming up. I'm excited to go through. I'm excited to get through. I think there's a lot to get out of there. So, and he said with me, it made him feel like he could really start talking about things that excited him. So he couldn't talk about he couldn't start talking about things that excited him with anyone else. He couldn't talk about things that excited him with his wife, with his sister, with his parents, with his friends from work, with his high school friends that apparently have been his friends, since high school, even to this day, according to his mum. They must have gotten along very well to be friends for many, many years, even decades. So apparently with her, he felt like he could start talking about things that excited him. There's so much distancing and qualifying in here. Like I've said before, I do think he said these things to her. But I think there's sensitivity here, right? Because there's so many sensitivity indicators, which is distancing, qualifying, things like persuasion. They're all sensitivity indicators, right? And they indicate sensitivity. And sensitivity can be present because of stress, which can be because of deception, can be because of fabrication or they're lying. but not necessarily, or it might not be that they're lying about what you think they're lying about, which is why we can't make assumptions, right? So it has to be in the language, but the language should guide us. So, for instance, if we want to know if she's sensitive because she simply had an affair and she's concerned of the way it's going to look on her and her reputation, you know, the word's going to get out, it's going to be on the news, people, you know, will know her name, she's going to be embarrassed. Things like that, that will be present in the language, okay? We'll see language that indicates, that shows, that supports that, all right? There'll be language about sort of reputation. There'll be language about sort of embarrassment. There'll be language about concern, and the concern will be for what's going to happen now, what's going to be said about me, you know, these sorts of things. If the language is focused more on other things, like trying to convince us that she didn't know something, or trying to convince us that she had nothing to do with it, well, if her focus is on that, then that's what's on her mind, okay? So the sensitivities are going to be because of that, focused on that, not because of concern for her reputation, because she's embarrassed because she had an affair, that sort of thing. It's going to be concern that she doesn't want to get the blame for this, or putting the blame on someone else. So the language will determine what the sensitivity is sort of in relation to. It's not for us to assume. So even though I do give my opinion about some of the language and some of the theories that I have, and some of the reasons that I think the sensitivities may be, that might be causing the sensitivities, I'm not going to put that in my analysis. I'm putting that in the video as a conversation, or, you know, topic of conversation, a theory, just putting it out there, something that we can, if I say it in real time and then later on in the statement, the language supports it, I can say, okay, now the language supports this theory that I was allowing as a possibility. This is now indicated in the language, okay? So that's just because of the video, sort of for discussion, things like that. And in the analysis is only the words of the statement. There's no opinions, there's no assumptions, okay? So the language will guide us, all right? I've shared a couple of my theories, some reasons I think there are for sensitivities, and then we have come to where I can see it in the language as an example of that. And throughout, if I'm giving my opinion, I will basically say it's my opinion. I'm not going to claim it's in the language if it's not in the language. It's not in my best interest to do that. It doesn't look good for me if I'm saying things are in the language that aren't. It just makes me look like I don't know what I'm doing. So, all right, let's carry on. So with him, with me, it made him feel like, and he said, so I think, I went on a big tangent there. I think that the sensitivities here could be because like I said, I think he did say this, but the sensitivities here indicate stress. And it could be that she's trying to push an agenda. So she might be sort of embellishing, exaggerating things. She might be misquoting him. So he didn't actually really say quite this, but she's quoting him and then using persuasion. So that could be why the language is backed off. It's not so confident and committed. That could be a reason for it. It could be because, like I said in previous videos, the conversation where this happened was actually about his marriage and Shanann. Therefore, she knew he was very much married to Shanann. Therefore, she didn't think he was separated like she's alleging and he's alleging that he told her he was. So that could be reasons for the sensitivities here, but it is sensitive. So exactly why, I'm not sure. I think the language is revealing more and more. Like, she is concerned. there's focus on his wife. Like there's little digs at Shanann. So there's this anger and there's this resentment towards Shanann, which I just don't think she would have if they were separated at the time of this. I just don't think she would have that. And she still could, right? But I just don't think it would be as strong as if she was a current or at the time present wife, right? And not an ex, okay? Because she's competition. She's a threat. So she has little digs at Shanann throughout. There's many more to come, okay? And they get worse. But yeah, so she's claiming here that basically she's the only one he could be himself around. And she brought him out of his shell. So, you know, he couldn't really even be his true self around anyone else except her, which is crazy because they didn't know each other long. And considering she was asked what he was like, she actually can't tell us what he was like at all. And I don't think she knew Chris very well at all. I don't think she knew what he was like. And I think that's why she can't. And that also could be another reason for the sensitivity, because she actually doesn't know what he was like. So she's trying to sound like she does. And that's why it's not confident and it's not committed and it's backed off and it's distanced and it's qualified. So various reasons, all right? So we allow for those possibilities and then the language will indicate which one of those it is or if it's more than one. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that we had things in common. Now, they didn't have things in common, or they might have had things in common. So previously, she said they had so much in common, right? It was more in common that they had. Now it's reduced to we had things in common. So with me, it made him feel, not I made him feel. We covered a lot of this in the previous videos, but it does tie in together. So I'm just wanting to get the context of what, because she says, I think a lot of that had to do with, so what is this that, right? What is the that she's talking about? A lot of that is her making him, it making him feel, not her. If someone can't say something for themselves, we can't say it for them. We go directly from the language of the speaker. We don't correct anything, okay? We can't correct grammar. We have to use their own words, the words they've chosen. And she says, with me, it made him feel. Not she made him feel. So I can't say she made him feel, right? Because that's not what she said. She said it back here again. He said that around most people, he just like didn't really feel the need to like talk and converse. It wasn't just his home life in general. It wasn't something where he was an introvert. He emphasized to me one of the reasons he really enjoyed talking to me is because he felt like he could get out of his shell. He's probably more reserved around other people. She is persuading, pushing. Everything she's saying here is basically repeating the same thing, that he was more outgoing around me. He talked more around me. He was more himself around me. It's all focused on her. Even though she's been asked what he's like and she's describing him, everything she's saying here is focused on her, right? How special she was to him, how amazing she was, how she made him feel like no one else did. It goes on and over and over and over. So why is this so important for her to tell us again and again and again? Why is this so important for her to repeat over and over? Because, and this is me just talking, right? I'm just thinking as I'm saying this in real time. I've done this analysis ahead of time, but you can gain more every time you go over a statement. You can get more out of it. So we are actually doing analysis in real time. If this is your first video, I have pre-done an analysis which I read through, but as we go through it, more comes out in real time on video, and I can't edit. So this is all live, raw, one take, uploaded. So why is she pushing it so hard that she's so special and she's so wonderful to him? That she made him feel different, that he could come out of his shell around her? Because to be honest, that's not in her best interest. That does not look good for her. Basically what she's saying, because if you take, remember the context, so we've got to zoom back out, right? Zoom back out. What's happened here? Why is she in this room, right? She was having an affair with a married man that she worked with. Something horrible happened. There was a whole family homicided, okay? Including 2 very, very young little girls. It was a horrific, horrific crime. Absolute tragedy. And she's going on about how important she was to him and how special she was to him and how she made him feel like no one else and he really could come out of his shell around her. It sounds a little bit like if it wasn't for her, this wouldn't have happened. She brought things out in him no one else did. She brought this out in him. Is this some leakage she doesn't know is going on here? Is this her wanting to take, oh, okay, oh, wow, so this has just come out, right? This is just a thought I'm having, okay? But is this her, for some crazy psychotic reason, maybe narcissism, I don't know, okay? I'm not diagnosing anybody, allegedly in my opinion, right? All of this is my opinion. Is this her trying to take credit for what happened? Like, she's so amazing that this man did this for her. This man got rid of his entire family for her because she's so amazing. Imagine how amazing you would have to be for someone to do that just to be with you. Is that what's going on here? Because why is she saying this? If she's trying to say, and she does later in the interview say she doesn't believe she's the catalyst for this happening, and yet she's going on and on and on about how she made him feel different. He could really come out of his shell with her. He could really start talking about things that excited him. He was, wasn't like this around other people, around most people. He couldn't be himself, Well, look what happened when he could be himself and get out of his shell. Because the phrase is not get out of your shell, it's come out of your shell. It's get out of your comfort zone and come out of your shell. So she's mixed up that phrase, but get out sounds like an escape. Because of her, he could get out of his shell. And look what's happened. So all of this is because she's so amazing that he wanted to be with her so badly that he would literally go to any lengths to be with her because she's so amazing. Is this like the height or the pinnacle or whatever of narcissism that we're seeing right here? I'm seriously asking if there's any psychologists or anybody like that watching this video. Is that a thing? Like, is that what she's doing? Because I can't think of any other reason. She does have the narrative. She is pushing the narrative the whole way through. I'm innocent, I'm helpful, I'm amazing, I'm kind, I'm generous. All of the good, innocent things, right, of a good, decent person. She's trying to push the narrative. She's a good, decent, innocent person, right? But that doesn't really fit this. This has got nothing to do with that. Being the only one he could really talk to and making him feel like he could get out of his shell, that's not that narrative. That's not pushing that specific narrative. It's pushing a narrative of I'm so amazing, but in a very narcissistic and arrogant and egotistical way, not in a kind, humble, there's no way I could have known about this because I'm such a good, decent, kind person. That doesn't fit. That's not the same. Just before I move on, I just paused the video to go turn on the heater because it's freezing here right now. So just a little update for anyone who's been watching the videos recently. So I had some equipment issues and then I got that sorted and then I fell. Okay, so I have a back injury and I slipped in my bathroom and I fell and I thought I'd gotten away with it. Okay, I thought I'd gotten away with it. fast forward 1 week later, right? And I've spent the last 2 days in bed, unable to walk or really do anything. So I didn't get away with it. It just took a week to catch up with me. So that was pretty awful. But it was only 2 days because I felt the feeling that I feel when the problematic area, when that gets sensitive, when it's about to pinch the nerve. And so I felt it, and I just straight away just in bed. I'm here 2 days, I can't move until this feeling goes away. And usually it sort of moves. I don't know. I'm seeing a specialist in September, but the pain moves around. So usually I just have really bad constant pain in my neck, my shoulders, like my back, my hips. It sort of moves around, but it's just constant pain, just all the time. And when I have pain somewhere else, it's not right down in that problem area where it will pinch the nerve. So I just had to wait for it to move, and now it's moved. So now it's in my neck. Hooray! But the night before that happened, the internet dropped out here. And I thought, sometimes when we have bad weather here, the internet just drops out, because they said that the cable will make everything better and it will be faster and better connection, and it's much worse. But it is what it is now, because it's too late. It's all installed. So I thought it was the weather, and then it didn't come back on. And then I thought maybe we hadn't paid the bill. Maybe that, the bill got missed somehow, but that wasn't it. So I was without internet for 2 days while they had to come and like create a ticket, and then someone had to come out and open the box up or whatever in the street, however they do it. And it turned out that there was a problem. It was disconnected, so they fixed it. But I don't know what's going on at the moment. Rabbit Hole Rocks jokes that, Nicole is watching these videos. My channel's so small, I don't know if she's seen my videos or not. But if she has, maybe she's cursed me. I don't know. But I've just had the worst luck in the last 2 weeks. Just, filming wise, with the equipment, and then I had the fall. So then I was in bed for 2 days, and then my internet dropped out, and it's just been, it's been a week. Okay, so let's carry on. So I think a lot of that had to do with the fact we had things in common. So that here that she's talking about is him coming out of his shell with her, feeling like he could start talking about things that excited him. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. Things that excited him. Do you know? I wonder, this has sort of sexual undertones, if you ask me. And excited could be leakage, as in aroused, right? He could really get out of his shell. He could really start talking about things that excited him. Now, if you think about her Google searches, she Googled sort of 3 ways and other things that are very intimate, or not intimate, but intimate, you know what I mean? Could she be talking about this, and that's why it's sensitive, because she's trying to make it sound not physical and not sexual. I'm trying not to say that word in case it flags my video. So I don't want my video flagged. I only get a few dozen, a couple dozen views at the moment, so I don't need any trouble. But he could get out of his shell. Most people, he didn't feel the need to talk and converse. It wasn't just his home life, but in general. So in his home life, like, they weren't being intimate anymore. He said with him, it made him feel like he could really start talking about things that excited him. So experimenting, trying new things in a physical way, right? Maybe. That's a possibility. It's in the language. It's in the language, okay? I think a lot of that had to do with the fact we had things in common. Now, she doesn't want to say what the things are, okay? Things in common. A lot of that. So not that, and that was because, and I think a lot of that had to do with, so it wasn't even that a lot of it was, a lot of it had to do with. So she's backing off and backing off. She's qualifying and qualifying, distancing and distancing, right? And because they didn't have things in common, like not substantial things in common. They had a couple of, you could bump into someone on the street and have things in common, okay? The very fact that you're outside and bumping into someone might mean that you just have a job because, you know, you're walking to work or you're on your lunch break. It might be because you enjoy exercise because you're outside. It might be because you have a dog. It could be anything. You don't have to know a person to have things in common, okay? And I think she's trying to make it sound like they were closer and they knew each other better than they did. And this is in the language because it's so distancing. And is continuing on, and, right? There's no buts here. He really enjoyed talking to me, come out of his shell, felt the need to talk and converse. And it wasn't just in his home life that he couldn't talk and converse, right? That he didn't feel the need to talk and converse. It wasn't something, he's an introvert. And he said with him, with me, it made him feel like he could come out of his shell, start talking about things that excited him, right? And instead of like not his wife, right? Not his home life, not other people, but me. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact we had things in common. Now, she says the fact here, but that's negated by all of this distancing and all of this qualifying. That is distancing. There's a that in there. I think we went through this. So they didn't have really anything in common at all, really, right? Think is qualifying. A lot of, not all of it, a lot of, so it's not complete, it's partial, right? I think is partial, it's not certain. A lot of is partial. Had to do with is partial again. And then she says the fact, but then that is distancing again. We had things in common. They didn't. This comes up later. I think I went through it a little bit in the last video. So let's move on. So with me, I think he was a little bit more outgoing, but even then I would still consider him to be an introvert. So what in the heck is she even talking about? She's pushing again. So lacks confidence. It's sort of buying time. It's stalling. She's thinking about what she wants to say. So is the same as because. And it's of the highest sensitivity. I haven't flagged this. I missed it when I went through it the first time. So is like because, right? Highest sensitivity. So why is this so sensitive to her? Why is this so sensitive? Why is this so important to her, right? So with me, with her, again, singled herself out, just with her, specifically with her. I think, not certain, he was a little bit more qualifying, more partial, right? A little bit more outgoing. Okay, so she's got introvert and then she's got outgoing. So she's got opposite ends of the spectrum there. She's got an introvert and she's got an extrovert, right? But with me, I think he was a little bit more of an extrovert. But even then, right, I would still consider him to be an introvert. She said she's an introvert, which means he's less outgoing as a general sort of stereotype, or what that actually means, right? What introvert means. us. So with me, I think he was a little bit more outgoing. But even then, so he's backing it off again. So no, yes, but no. I would still consider him to be an introvert. You've said several times he's an introvert. You've said several times he's an introvert. And she's not finished, by the way. She continues about how introverted he is, right? But let's read what I have here for this, I don't even know what I'm saying. It's the painkillers, guys. It's the painkillers. All right. So is flagged for sensitivity. Oh, so I did flag it in my analysis, but I didn't highlight it. That's always highlighted in a specific color because it's one of the 2 highest sensitivities. It's highlighted in blue. So when you have a cluster of blues in a statement, you know that's the most sensitive area anywhere you see blue. So the only 2 things that are highlighted in blue, you can choose whatever color you want, but Peter Hyatt chose blue, okay, is because, so explaining something without being asked, not if they have been asked, then it's not highly sensitive because you've asked them. It's only sensitive when they haven't been asked. And saying they left somewhere to go somewhere else, not just saying they left somewhere, saying they left somewhere to go somewhere else and went somewhere else, because you can't go somewhere else without leaving, which is what makes that so sensitive. If they just say they left somewhere, like we left the party at about 10 o'clock, that's not highlighted in blue. If they say we left the party and went home at 10 o'clock, then that's highlighted in blue because they left the party and went home. We didn't just go home at 10 o'clock or just leave the party at 10 o'clock. We left the party and went home at 10 o'clock. You can't go home without leaving the party, all right? So that's why it's so sensitive. I have seen people just saying when someone says they left somewhere, it's the highest sensitivity. That just isn't. It might be sensitive for some, other reason, but it's not the highest sensitivity. Okay. It's important why she wanted us to know why, right? So we always have to ask in statement analysis why. I will repeat myself over and over and over in these analysis because that's what statement analysis is. It's repetition. And so you'll pick things up because of the repetition, but also that's how you note when something is, obviously, there's a cluster because of the repetition. You notice patterns because of the repetition. So every time I see an indicator, a sensitivity, I'm going to flag it, I'm going to note it, I'm going to explain what it is, right? Say what it is, explain what it is. Because that's just what you do in analysis. You have to explain why it's sensitive every time. Okay. So, right, we always have to ask ourselves why. So why does she want us to know this? Why does she keep telling us this? Why does she keep telling us this? That he's an introvert, But around me, he was different. Around me, he came out of his shell. He said, I was different. I was so amazing, but he's an introvert. Is she trying to push the fact that he couldn't have done what he did? But he did do what he did, so that doesn't make sense. Is she trying to push that he couldn't have done what he did in that she couldn't possibly have seen or known that he was going to do that because he didn't seem like he could do that? I don't know, because introvert doesn't mean he can't do that. A lot of people who do that sort of things are introverted. They're quiet. They're socially awkward. But there has to be a reason for it. She's repeating it so much. And I'm leaning towards my earlier thought. That this is subconsciously, she wants us to know, or she feels like this pumps her up somehow. This makes her seem like so amazing. She's so incredible because someone did this for her. I don't know. Maybe the language will change my mind, but the more she talks, the more that's what I feel. That's what I'm getting. I don't know. Tell me what you think in the comments. If you think that you're hearing that too, did that make sense? Or if you don't, if you think that I'm just, I don't know. I don't know if you think I'm a bit nuts for thinking that. I don't know. It's jumping out to me. It's jumping out stronger and stronger. She's so special, right? With me, I think he was a little bit more outgoing. She specifies and highlights herself. Again, see, again, it's just her. She's talking about him, but she's talking about her. Why doesn't she just say what he was like around her? That's what she's being asked. What was Chris like? I've said in a previous video, she can't tell us what he was like around other people because she wasn't there. She can only tell us what he was like around her. They ask other people to get their perspectives on him. They ask everybody, and then they put together, you know, what they've got from everybody, and then they bring it all together, right? What everyone said he was like. She keeps, I don't know. Let's carry on. See where this goes. Okay. Not most people, not everyone, not home or in general, just with me, over and over again, then qualifies with I think, which weakens her statement. It lacks confidence. It weakens, right? Her opinion. It weakens her opinion. It weakens her perception of him, of what he was like. It weakens that. Not something he said, right? Not something he said or something he did. Just I think. He was a little bit more outgoing, qualifies with a little bit. Again, weakens it further. Then she refutes or negates all that with but. But even then, right? Another reference to time with then, even then. So another reference to time. I've missed so many of these because it's way more, it's way more present in her language than I had picked up the first time. Because there's so many sensitivities. So there's different sensitivities, right? There's like 30 of them, right? Between 20 and 30 of them. So when you're going through language, so what I would normally do is go through, do the analysis, and then go through the analysis again, like 20, 25, however many there are, times. And each time I go through the analysis, I go through it with looking for specifically that sensitivity. So I go through overall, see what jumps out to me. But when you have this many sensitivities, when it's this thick with sensitivity, it's sometimes you just miss some because others are stronger, they jump out more, right? So going through this again, I'm seeing a lot of stuff I didn't see the first time. I didn't spend a lot of time on this first analysis though either. I kind of just, I went through it line by line and I wrote whatever came out to me. I'd think on it for a little while. I probably wouldn't spend more than, I don't know, some lines would take longer than others because there's more in there. But I probably wouldn't have spent more than half an hour on each line. Yeah, so we're definitely getting a lot more out this time. So she continues to weaken this further and further. I don't know. I can't believe that she believes he was more outgoing with her. She wants everyone to think that, but I think from her language, right, her language indicates to me that even she thinks he was exactly the same with her. She's pushing this too hard, right? And I don't believe that she knew what he was like with other people. I don't believe that he didn't get excited with his wife, talking to his wife about things that excited him. I don't believe that he couldn't talk to other people about things that excited him. I don't believe he wasn't outgoing with other people. He had friends. He had work colleagues. He had a family. I don't believe this. And she's pushing it too hard. She's talking me out of believing her, right? Because we believe what people tell us, okay? And she's telling me that she needs to push this. She needs to persuade me. And persuasion has a need to persuade. So the need for persuasion is that it doesn't stand on its own 2 feet, right? It's desperation. It's not just truth. She needs me to believe it, okay? So I don't believe he was different. No, that's not true. I believe he was different with her, but I don't believe that he wasn't outgoing with other people and couldn't speak to other people about things that excited him, like she's saying. I think that perhaps in a context of physical intimacy, that might be true, and maybe that's why she's able to say it. But she does qualify and distance a lot. So she's able to say it, but she's not able to just tell us. It needs help. It needs convincing. And she's weakened it and she's distanced from it. So the distance might be because she's trying to make it sound like conversation and closeness. Like personally, conversationally, relationship, in that sort of a way, like that, to get to know each other. But really, maybe it's just physically. So maybe that's why she's needing to qualify and distance so much, because it's not about the thing she's trying to pretend it's about. So that could be why, right? I would still consider him to be an introvert. So we've come full circle from her first sentence in this answer. Aside from the need to convince us that she's special and different, and he's different with her because she brings something out in him that no one else does or can, she doesn't. He's the same still, so nothing changed, all that talking for nothing. Then she talks over the detective, which is something that she'll do again, and I think it demonstrates her self-absorption, narcissism, selfishness, disregard and disrespect for others. So a complete lack of respect, right? Just her true colors are coming out throughout this interview. And still is another reference to time as well. Still. I would still consider him to be an introvert. She can't even say he's an introvert. I don't think she knows what he's like. I don't think she knows him at all, because she could just say, and she does say he's an introvert, right? He's an introvert, but she has to come back to it and weaken it. So she wants to say he's more outgoing, but I would still consider him to be an introvert. You're saying this and then you're conflicting what you've just said. Like you're what's it called? Contradicting what you've just said. And then you're saying it again. So are you trying to make it sound more complicated than it is? Are you trying to make it sound like, well, you know, I'd say this about him, but, you know, blah, blah, blah. But then there's this, and then, you know, he's a little bit like this, but, you know, basically I'd say he's this. And you haven't really said anything at all. You've just contradicted yourself and then come full circle to the same conclusion. Well, anyone that didn't know him very well could have said, right? Who was Chris? What was Chris like? Who was Chris? You know, Chris was very family orientated. You know, Chris was quiet. He was funny. He was really smart. I'm making all of this up. I don't believe any of the stuff I'm saying, right? I'm just, for instance, what could you say about someone you know? And I think in a previous video, I I did describe someone I knew. You know, I just rattled off things about them because I know them. She's not saying anything about him at all. She's not saying anything about him. She's saying he's an introvert, but that's, like I said before, that's a description. It's a general description. It's an identity. It's not a person's character and a person's personality. Introverts, there's millions and millions of people in the world that are probably introverts, and they're all different. They're all different people, and they're all individuals. Okay, so let's carry on with the next sentence. Now we're nearly... This is the last sentence of the block, guys. This is the last sentence of the block. Right. Oh, this is... Okay, so we've finished the block, but not really, because Kevin goes to talk, but she just talks over him. So this is technically the end of the block, even though Kevin tried to say something and she wouldn't let him, right? But she's just repeated herself again. She hasn't even said anything new, but she talked over Kevin to say this. She literally just stomped on him to say this, okay? But not on the extreme end. If an introvert went from like 1 to 10, I'd put him at a 4 or 5. I think there's a lot of vocal fry in this part. So on the lighter side of introverted. Okay. She's just said the same thing here. She's just said the same thing. He was a little bit more outgoing with me, right? With me. I think he was a little bit more outgoing, but even then I'd still consider him to be an introvert, right? But not on the extreme end of an introvert. What end? So she's saying he's an introvert. He was a little bit more outgoing with me, no one else, just me. He was a little bit more outgoing, but not on the extreme end. She just said he was a little bit more outgoing, but he was an introvert, which would put him on the less outgoing side end of a scale. Because with me, he was a little bit more outgoing, but he was an introvert, right? But not on the extreme end. You just said that. You've literally just said that, but in a different way. And this, now it's more exaggerated on the extreme end, but not on the extreme end. So there's a but. So she's negating everything she said. So she was and until now, right? Still consider him to be an introvert, but not on the extreme end. She's allowing for the fact he's not an introvert. That's what she's doing here. But even then, but not on the extreme end, but negates everything that came before it. It refutes everything that came before it. She was saying he's a little bit more outgoing, but I'd still consider him an introvert, but not on the extreme end. If an introvert went from like 1 to 10, I'd put him at a 4 or 5. So on the lighter side of introverted. That's what you just said. So now you've gone from introvert to extrovert, right, as the scale, introvert to extrovert. Now the scale is just introvert, 1 to 10. And he's on the lighter side. So not only is he on the lighter side of introverted to extroverted, he's on the lighter side, so he's an introvert. Now he's on the lighter side of introverted. So now he's even less extroverted. Her voice gets softer and lighter and higher and fried here. Now, statement analysis doesn't take into account anything but words, the subject's words, okay? But because we are discussing other things in this analysis, in this video, it lacks confidence. Scott Rouse from the behavior panel calls it fading facts. When as someone's talking, they get quieter and it sort of fades out like that. So it lacks confidence as they're talking and working their way through the words. It gets less and less confident. It gets weaker and weaker until at the end it's almost just like a whisper. It just sort of disappears, right? They don't make a statement. It's not a confident statement that comes out confidently, right? It comes out confidently, right? So it's weak. Her voice gets softer and lighter and higher and fried, okay? Vocal fry, they've done research on, and it is extremely irritating to people. In general, people hate vocal fry. Some people have a lot of it. It's just the way they sort of, their voice is. It's sort of gravelly and or a bit husky, you know, and they have a little bit more of a fry. But when people are speaking, if you're listening to someone speaking, it's very unpleasant to listen to vocal fry. And the research that they've done shows that that's across the board. That's overwhelmingly the majority, the overwhelming majority. People hate vocal fry. We could go into why that is, but I don't think we will, because statement analysis doesn't take that into account. So we don't really need to cover it, but it is sort of, I think it indicates a certain, I want to say not emotion, but like a certain attitude and behavior, superiority sometimes. It can I think it can be represented by different things, like for different reasons that it happens. We're not going to go into it, but I did just note that there. I've noted anytime there's a specific, like a sort of an exaggerated change in her voice, or something happens that's like that, a lot of vocal fry, or if she does like an up talk that's really bizarre, I've put it in my notes just to note it. So again, she emphasizes that everything she said before was pointless and irrelevant, because he's not that introverted anyway, apparently. He's not a 10 introverted. He's like a 5. So he's like medium introverted. It doesn't make any sense what she's saying. I don't even think she actually knows what she's saying. I think she's making this up as she goes along. She's trying to sound like she knows him, and she doesn't. And she's also trying to not commit to anything. She's not saying anything that he is or isn't like, but she's making allowances for. So she's saying he's an introvert, but not extreme introvert, like a 5, which is literally the center, literally the middle. So he's not that introverted anyway, apparently. So, but negates or refutes everything before it. So she just said she would still consider him an introvert, even though he's less introverted around her, but he's not that introverted. Like he'd be a 4 or 5. So then him starting to talk about things he liked with her wouldn't be that difficult or special or extraordinary, because he's only medium introverted. He's not that introverted. So why does she even say any of that for, except then to feed her narratives of I'm helpful, I'm giving you information, I'm giving detail, and I'm really special and awesome. End is another reference to time. Reference to time. End. And I've got another language note in here. So I mentioned that she speaks a lot about food and stuff. And because she was obviously sort of really obsessed with diet and fitness and all that, it makes sense. People have a language, right? Some people would call it a baseline. I don't believe in baselines in statement analysis, because you don't need you don't need to see any other language from a person. You can sit down with a statement and analyze it. You're analyzing the language against the language. You're analyzing it against itself, right? It's a change in language in the statement. It's not a change in language from what they would normally say. It's irrelevant, okay? All that matters is what they've said in the statement. You don't need a baseline on someone, okay? Because what you would call a baseline is only to recognize a change in the baseline, right? Because that's where is a sensitivity. So you don't need a baseline. It's just a pattern, right? You just see, oh, they've used this word here, and then over here they've used this word, or they say this word all the time, but here they don't say it. It's not really a baseline. It's just the analysis, right? But Scott Rouse has a party trick where he says if he talks to you for 5 minutes, he can tell you what books you've read or who your favorite author is or whatever. And it has to do with the way people speak and how they speak. And because obviously he's well read, I guess, he can recognize ideas and maybe how some people speak in metaphors, or how they group words together, or how they explain things might be similar to a writer that they like. And because they read so much of that writer, then they sort of take on that format in speaking, right? I don't know if I'm explaining that very well. I'm sure you know what I mean. So she speaks in a lot of, time, because time's on her mind, right? So there's time present in a lot of her language. All is a pattern or a theme. But she also speaks in terms of food and stuff a lot. And I just saw the lighter side here. The lighter side, scales, weight, that sort of thing, because she's very fitness focused, right? So I just made a note of that here as well, okay? So on the lighter side, so it's light or heavy, right? On the heavier side, on the lighter side, scales, food, weight, fitness, that sort of thing, okay? So that tracks, and we will note those things moving forward, because we just note that that's how she speaks, okay? And it's interesting where that stuff comes up, which is also why you should note it. Like in the example I gave in the last video, contrary to rumors floating around out there, that was important because where that was present in his language had to do with where the body was, right? So it came out in his language and at a very, very sensitive and important time, what's the word for it? Like the context, okay? So Kevin says, that's the block. We finished the block. Hooray! Hallelujah! We finished the block. Okay, now we go sort of line for line, question and answers. We do have to take note of what Kevin says, because like I said, the language in the question asked is important because it will affect the analysis. So Kevin says, so pretty even keeled, because she kept saying, he's an introvert. He's an introvert. He's an introvert. He's more outgoing with me, but he's an introvert. But on the lighter side of introverted. So basically Kevin is saying, so he's just, average. He's not introverted. He's not extroverted, like on the extreme ends. He's medium introverted. So he's sort of like normal, right? So pretty even keeled, which isn't what she said. And he introduced that language, but okay. Okay. She says yes, like really relaxed, like all the time. He was never really like worked up about anything. Just, this is persuasive, really, really. So like really relaxed, but like really relaxed, okay? Like all the time. He was never really like worked up about anything. Okay. Yes, good answer. But she can't stop there. She's got to keep going. Because she's so helpful and informative, right? So she's so helpful and she's giving so many details, right? So she keeps talking. Yes, like really relaxed, like all the time. He was never really like worked up about anything. That's not generally a trait of an introvert. You can be introverted and like calm and relaxed and not get worked up, but introverts can get worked up. It's not just a general trait of introverts that they don't get worked up about anything. She never mentioned this before. He was very calm. He didn't have a temper, you know. He was very passive. Like he was always really he had a calm energy. She never said anything about that, just that he was introverted, right? But he was more outgoing with her. Then Kevin introduces some language. I don't know why she thought, like why when he said even keeled, it made her say, yeah, like really relaxed all the time. So is that something that she remembered she was supposed to say that she hadn't said? And so she's now saying it? Or was she saying that because he said even keeled, as in his temperament was even keeled, like relaxed, like chilled? I wish Kevin hadn't not introduced the language. I'm surprised that Peter said he thought that the interviewers did a really good job. Maybe he meant in comparison, because a lot of law enforcement don't have extensive training in this stuff. So maybe, and he knew that they were trying to keep her on side because she wasn't a suspect. She was being interviewed. She was there willingly. She was allowed to leave. So if they upset her, she could have left at any time. Is he taking that into account? I would have to say so, because I just don't believe they did that good of a job. But Peter as well was also so kind that he wouldn't have put anyone down, I don't think. Although he has pointed things out. He did in his Richard D. Hall interview get annoyed with the interviewer and comment about it. So I'm not sure exactly where the allowances are coming from here, but we'll look at it when we do our video. Yeah, like I said, I think they've given a bit too much weight to the fact that she was concerned about her reputation and she was unaware that he was married. I don't see how they missed that, but I'm not sure. I don't know. Okay, so like really relaxed. So this is very persuasive. So we've got really relaxed, like all the time. He was never really like worked up about anything. Never really, it's in the negative. So he was never really worked up. It's better to speak in the positive and say he was calm. You know, he handled things well. Just speaking in the negative is never a good sign. Okay. So you're either relaxed or you're not. Really relaxed, like all the time, okay? So persuasive. Why the need to persuade? Okay, so we know what's happened to his wife. So he very clearly wasn't really relaxed, like all the time. Never really worked up about anything, right? Until obviously he was, and then 3 people ended up at an oil site at Survey 319. Because he was really relaxed, like all the time, right? But she needs us to think or believe this is what she saw or believed of him for her to be an innocent victim here. So this comes down to what I was saying before, right? So she's pushing a narrative. She needs the listener, the detective, the interviewer, us, the listeners, public, to believe that she didn't think he was capable of what he did, okay? That's one of the narratives that she's trying to push. She needs us to think she didn't think he was capable of that. She didn't know about it. She wasn't aware. She didn't see it coming. She had no clue, right? So to have not seen it coming and have no clue and know nothing about it, she couldn't have thought he was capable of anything like that, okay? Because if she thought he was capable of something like that, then she might have seen it coming, might have had a reason to be worried, might have had a clue. Are you following? Does that make sense? So she needs us to believe she didn't believe he was capable of that, right? But it comes back to, again, what I was saying in a different video, in an earlier video. That doesn't fit. Still, that doesn't fit here. Again, because of the very fact that she's trying to tell us that she didn't think he was capable of what he's done. And now knowing what he's done, there's no shock. There's no, how could this have happened? How did I not see this? How, he didn't seem like he was capable of this. How is he capable of this? How did I not know he was capable of this? How is a man that was calm all the time and never, how was he capable of this, what he's done? There's none of that. There's none of it. So it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense in the context. So, excuse me. In the very small bubble of context where she's saying, I didn't know he was capable of this. I didn't know anything about, I didn't see this coming. I didn't know anything about it. I had no clue. In that context of the narrative she's pushing, right, she's saying this. But in the greater context, when you zoom out of what he's done, and she now knows what he's done, there's no outrage. There's no shock. There's no, oh my God, how has this happened? How did I not see this? Why were there no signs? There must have been signs. There's none of the confusion and the shock that needs to go with this for the very reason of the narrative she's pushing. There needs to be that for this to there needs to be that for this to be real, for this to be true. That's the expected versus the unexpected, right? It's not, I'm not making an assumption. It's not my opinion, okay? If what she's saying is true and she had no idea he was capable of it and didn't see it coming, where's the shock and the outrage? Now, Peter says in his video that she knows what's happened, right? She knows that they're beyond help. She knows that they're beyond saving Shanann and the girls, okay? It's too late for them, okay? So the concern is not for them and helping and saving them because they're beyond help and beyond saving, right? So the concern is for herself and her reputation and, you know, what's going to happen. But I just don't agree with that, because even though they're beyond help and beyond saving, that should be the cause of outrage that is not here. There should be outrage and shock present because they're beyond help and beyond saving, and she had no idea and didn't realize he was capable of that. And she's found out what he's done, and apparently was in the dark and had no clue that he was capable of it or planning it. It just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. If you think you can explain to me how these things can exist separately, how this can exist and be real, and not require the outrage and the shock, okay, in the context of what's happened, in the situation, if you can explain to me why she can be pushing this narrative of I didn't know, right, and I had no idea he was capable of it, and why that can exist and not require the shock and the outrage of what's happened, please explain it to me. Someone please explain it to me, because to me it does not fit. That cannot exist without the other. And the fact that it does, the fact that it exists without the other, indicates deception to me. It indicates fabrication. It indicates pushing a narrative. It indicates not guilty knowledge. It sounded like I said not guilty knowledge. It indicates guilty knowledge. I was going to say knowledge. I self-edited there. See what that sounds like? Self-correcting, self-editing. It indicates guilty knowledge, because there's no shock and outrage that she didn't see it coming. How could this have happened? But she's saying she didn't see this coming. He never lost his temper. He was never upset about anything. Never got worked up about anything. He was really relaxed all the time. Well, that doesn't track with what happened. So how can you be pushing this narrative without the shock and outrage? I think I'm finished my rant on that for now. Maybe. Might come back to it. I get a bit worked up, okay? I get worked up. I really get worked up about stuff. I'm not really relaxed all the time. I get worked up about stuff. And Nicole gets me worked up about stuff. Okay, so where are we? I want to hear your opinion on this, okay? In the comments. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think about everything and anything. It doesn't even have to be specific to this. Just I want to hear all your theories. I want to hear your opinions. Whatever. Okay. I never could have imagined that he was capable of this. Seems so unlike him. He was always so calm. I can't believe he did this. There's none of that, right? He was never really worked up about anything. Never. All the time. More references to time. More references to time, guys. More references to time. All the time. Never really worked up about anything. So more references to time. I suppose I better write it down. Never and all the time. Because I'm going to make a list of these in my book where we note all the different things and we go through at the end and have a look for the patterns and the themes, which I think is going to be really interesting and fun because I won't have done any of that until we actually get there. So we'll be doing all of that together in real time, okay? So really, again, another qualifier persuasion. Lacks confidence. You can't say he was never worked up about anything. I'm sure there was something to go with her never really anything. Never really anything, okay? So he did get worked up about stuff or something, okay? So let's go into this a little bit. We won't spend too much time on it because I don't think it's going to be groundbreaking, but I think this showed he did get worked up about some stuff or something, okay? maybe, now this isn't in the language yet. This is me just throwing ideas out there, right? Because I believe, and the language has started to indicate it, and I think it gets more clear as we go through it. So I'm confident the language will support what I'm about to say, but at the moment I don't want to say that yet. I think Nicole got really escalated in arguments and stuff. I think she really escalated situations. I think that was a tactic to sort of get the other party to give in to her, get the other party to try and de-escalate by just giving her what she wanted or just dropping it or something. And maybe she pushed him too far once or twice, maybe it was only once, maybe it was more than once, to the point where he did get worked up. Because what was it? Is it in his interview? Now, I haven't analysed his interviews yet, but I think it was Rabbit Hole Rocks I was watching. I don't think it was Veriscope. I think it was Rabbit Hole Rocks. She was doing the calendar. One of her lives I was watching. And Chris had mentioned, now Nicole talks about this. I don't think I've gotten to that part yet. I think I'm remembering doing the initial analysis, the written one, but I don't think we've covered it in the video. She describes an event or a day and something that happened, and Chris's version is different. So Nicole explains that she went over to his house one day, and I remember in my analysis, I remember writing, this sounds like it was an unplanned visit. Like, I don't think there was an invitation. I don't think she was invited. It's in my written analysis. And then when I was listening to Chris, I think it was one of his interviews, I don't remember which one, and he was telling about that day. And apparently he'd spent the night or something, because Shanann was away, and they'd had an argument, and he had left her apartment, right? So he had left. Now, he didn't say that she threw him out or she kicked him out. He said he'd left her apartment, okay? And then she came to his house with some stupid made up reason of, doing his macros or whatever for his diet on this app. She made it sound in her version like it was a planned visit, and she'd come over because he'd asked her to help him with this thing, which he may have asked her in the past to help her with it, but she made it sound like he'd asked her to come over and help him with it. But according to him, he never invited her over. They'd had an argument, and he'd left her apartment, and then she had come to his apartment to try and make up with him. This supports that. Well, that would support this, whichever way. Never really worked up about anything. So the really is a qualifier in there. Remember how I said that really can be used to, or pretty can be used to increase something or decrease something? Well, this is an example of when really is decreasing something, right? It's not increasing something, because it's come with a negative. So it never really worked up. So it's reducing it. So it's not that he never got worked up. It's he never really got worked up. Right? So he did get worked up. He did get worked up. And I bet it was her that pushed him too far. I bet. And I bet he was really relaxed all the time. And I bet he didn't get worked up about stuff often or really ever. Right? So not ever, really ever. So the majority of the time, or almost never, right? But I think she pushed him to the point where he got worked up. And that's why she can't say he never got worked up about anything. He was never really like worked up about anything. She's qualifying. She can't say it. And I think it's because she did it. Yes, like really relaxed, like all the time. So he wasn't relaxed all the time. He did get worked up about something at least one time. And she's trying to cover that up. And I think she's trying to cover that up because he got worked up about her because she pushed him too far. I think that's what she did. So that's why I've said I'm sure there was a something to go with her never really anything. So never really anything, in other words, something, right? Yes, like really relaxed, like all the time. He was never really like worked up about anything. Just. And she finishes with just, right? But her and Kevin are sort of cutting. I don't know if she was going to continue there and Kevin cut her off. I see what he's trying to do and he's trying to confirm things, but I feel like the time for confirming comes after. Let her speak and then ask questions. I was thinking about an example of this today, right? And I was thinking about how I said, I'm worried I'm going to lose my thought and go off on a tangent. I was thinking about when I explained about the theft of the item from the group home, and Peter interviewed everyone that worked at the group home and he found who did it. Because of the sensitive areas in the statement. And then he called her back in for questioning and he just started questioning her just about the area of sensitivity, which was going out to her car on her lunch break. That was where the sensitivity was, right? So he just started asking her about her car and asking her about her car and asking, what color is it? When did you buy it? What year is it? What model is it? Does it get good mileage? All just car. And she got so stressed out about all of these questions about the car. She actually broke down and confessed, right? So this is where you use people's own language to confront them with it, to further question, to dig in the sensitive areas, and then that you don't make assumptions or have an opinion or accuse them. You just keep digging. And it's such a stressful area that eventually they are going to give in. Not every time, obviously. Maybe they'll say, I don't want to talk to you. I want my lawyer. I'm not talking to you anymore. Okay, then you can't ask any more questions. But that is how this is supposed to be used. And I was thinking about it in terms of Nicole, and what one area that you could, for example, question her about, how to dig. When she said she didn't know he was married, right? And that she found out that he said he was separated. That would be a sensitive area that you could use in that way to dig further. So you didn't know he was married? No. So he told you he was separated? Yes. So when did he tell you he was separated? Blah, blah, blah. So how did you find out he was separated? So he told me. Whatever the answers are. Okay. When did he tell you that? Blah, 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 blah. Was it before this happened? Blah, blah, blah. Was it before that happened? So how did he tell you? Did it come up in conversation? Did you ask him? Was it you saw something on his phone? Did something trigger it? Just keep asking question after question after question after question about the sensitive area. So when did you find out? How did you find out? How did he tell you? Where were you when he told you this? What conversation were you having? Were you in the car? Were you at work? Were you hanging out? Where were you hanging out? Were you on a date? This over and over and over, question. Because if it's fabricated, she's not going to have the answers to any of these questions. She's going to trip herself up because she's going to have to be trying to lie to all of these questions. All of these answers are going to have to be lies. And when you keep jumping around and asking questions, she's not going to be able to keep it, she's not going to be able to keep her lies straight. She's going to get confused, right? And the stress of being questioned about a sensitive area again and again and over and over and over and over, relentlessly, right? Relentlessly is what's going to cause the basically the breakdown because of the stress, right? I was just thinking of examples, you know, because sometimes when people try and explain things about how you would do something, but they don't give you a specific example, it's hard to imagine how it would work in a specific situation or scenario, you know? So I was trying to think of an example of how you could do that about the car with Nicole, and that would be one of the ways you could do that would be her claim that she didn't know, right? You know, so how long before were you talking before you found out? When did you find out? Where were you when you found out? How did he tell you? You know, all of these questions about how she found out and when she found out and finding out about it. Because she already knew, right? If I come up with any other sort of things, topics that you could focus in on, I'll try and mention them. But that will probably come at the end when we have our analysis, our themes, our patterns, our clusters, our sensitive areas, I'll probably make a list of like highest sensitivity to lowest. So the highest sensitivities, like patterns and themes that throughout the analysis, down to the smaller ones, the lesser ones that aren't as frequent, right? That don't show up as often or aren't as strong throughout. Because there are multiple themes and patterns in here. Some of them haven't really come to light yet, but they have, because obviously I'm ahead in the written analysis. They have in the written analysis. So I'm excited about getting to those ones. It is very interesting. So Kevin says, what does Kevin say? Goodness me. I could not sleep last night. Do you know what time I fell asleep last night? 4:30 in the morning. 4:30 in the morning. That's when most people, well, not most people, that's when some people wake up. So, right. So Benon really relaxed all the time. He was never really like worked up about anything. Okay. That's bothering me a little bit now, that line. I think there's something more in there. Relaxed. Oh, there's something bothering me now, guys. You know what that means? You know what that means? That means we're going to come back to that in another video. All right. Kevin, mellow. Nicole, chilled. Chilled is another reference to food, if you like, or beverages. Chilled, right? I mean, that one could be a bit of a stretch, but still fits, so we're going to note it. It doesn't have to carry as much weight, but we still note it. Mellow, chilled. What? I don't understand why they're playing this word association game. And it's just made me think of Mark Corrigan again. Not everything. I'm just picturing Nicole Kessinger and Kevin playing this word association game. Oh my gosh. Okay, calm down. All right. Not everything can be about Mark Corrigan. All right. I understand that. But somehow it is. I don't know. Kevin, mellow. So he's basically sort of, I can see what he's doing, right? You can see what he's doing. He's sort of paraphrasing, like, am I correct? Like, so this is what you mean, right? So he's kind of paraphrasing what she said. And then she's just given another word instead of saying, yeah, right? So they end up with the word association game. He gives a word, she gives a word. Mellow, chilled. So she says chilled. Relaxed, chilled. I wouldn't, if she said relaxed. See, even keeled to me, I wouldn't get relaxed, right? If we were playing a word association game. Even keeled wouldn't be relaxed to me. It would be, so rather than just sit thinking on the camera, I paused it. Because to me, right, even keeled, I wouldn't get relaxed. I wouldn't associate relaxed, wouldn't be what came from that. I would think of more like even tempered for even keeled. It would be like, yeah, like even tempered, like you know, like really sort of stable, like. So I've looked it up, right? It describes calm and steady personality, unaffected by mood swings, okay? So like temperament, like a level temperament, even tempered. Temperament is what I would think of, not relaxed. It would be like even keeled is more like unemotional, like calm, steady, right? She said relaxed. It's like emotionally stable, calm, steady, emotionally stable temperament, right? Consistent, level-headed, hard to anger or deeply upset. I'm not sure why relaxed has come out here. Because to me, relaxed kind of would imply more kind of ignorant. Is that what, like, not even keeled, just kind of unaffected, you know, like, I just wouldn't, relaxed would not be my expected word there, okay? But is it because he's not real bright, you know, like simple? Do you know what I mean? Like, so pretty even keeled, yeah, simple. You know, like just maybe easygoing would be better than relaxed. Just relaxed doesn't, someone who's relaxed can still get worked up, right? It's not a sort of temperament. It's like it's a temporary state, relaxed, you know? Easygoing would be a more expected way to explain or describe, I think, what she's trying to say. Relaxed is a more of a temporary state, right? Does that make sense? Please tell me in the comments if you disagree or if you think you can explain it better. My Prism Life and Hey Jude have done have explained things in a better way than me in previous videos. Shout out to you. I think Abby as well. Daniel for sure. Gary. Shaman. I feel like I'm saying your name wrong now every time as well. Shaman Ray. I don't want to say it because now I've got a complex about it. Anyway, if you think you can explain it better, if you think you know what I mean, but you know, I think you know what I'm trying to say. It's just relaxed is odd there. Relaxed is odd there. It's like she's trying too hard to make him seem like he's not capable of what he did, but he did do it. And then again, there's no outrage. So it's just getting worse and worse. Like the more she's trying, the more odd it sounds, the stranger it sounds. It just doesn't fit. And then it carries on. So he said mellow, right? And she said chilled. So I guess chilled is better to me than relaxed, because it kind of implies more of a personality trait rather than a state. You know, states are temporary. And then Kevin said easygoing guy, right? So easygoing, that's what I would expect. That's the way I would expect her to explain what she's trying to say. And then she says very much. Very much. Not yes, very much. She's pushing too hard. Right, let's go through the analysis here. Because I've actually got a lot for when she says just chilled. I've got over a page of analysis, and I can't wait to see what I wrote down. So we're going to stop just before we start going into the no, never, no. Right, so just can't, because she says just all the time. He was like worked up about anything, just, but then Kevin interrupts. So just can't exist without another thought. So maybe not, but we don't know what she was going to say. All right, so I'm not going to make assumptions about that. I don't think we need to. Oh, I'm going to have to finish up soon, guys, because I'm starting to feel something in my little back there. We'll just quickly read through this and then we'll finish up this last one, because the next part is all the no's, and then she goes on to explain why the answer is not no with another block, because that's what she does best, is she blocks. So she's pushing too hard. So chilled, like really relaxed, like all the time, never really worked up about anything, just like chilled very much, right? It's too much. Like really relaxed, like all the time. He was never really worked up about anything. Just I wish Kevin hadn't interrupted her here again. So he does interrupt her. He cuts her off after just. What was she about to say after just? Because just can't exist without another thought, right? As we know. So what was she about to say? Because she said just, right? So I would have liked to have known what she was going to say. But you know, he did, so we'll never know. Yes, like really relaxed, like all the time. He was never really like worked up about anything. So many qualifiers, so persuasive, so convincing. I don't believe her. He was like really relaxed, like all the time. He was having an affair in secret. He was lying to his wife. Now I remember this. See, this didn't come out to me when we just went through it, right? This didn't come out to me then. Different things came out to me then. This is why going over the analysis and it's my own eyes again looking at this, but having a second pair of eyes look at an analysis, you can get more out of it than what you had the first time, or a different person might see different things or have different things jump out, right? Because this is so funny. I put in the comments if you thought this before I've said it, right? Because I'm about to read it out now. If you were thinking it, when I was saying about him, you know, she's pushing that he was so relaxed all the time and he never got worked up. Like he was always chilled and relaxed. It's too persuasive. He can't have been. She's pushing it too hard. It's not true, right? She wants us to believe it. She needs us to believe it, because persuasion has a need to persuade. The truth can stand on its own 2 feet. Doesn't need help, right? Doesn't need persuasion. So this is funny. Okay. He was having an affair in secret, lying to his wife, seeing and speaking to his mistress multiple times a day, every single day. living in the same house with his wife, speaking to his mistress every single day, right? He was sneaking around, going on dates while his wife and children were at home or on holidays, because he was doing it before she went away and while she went away, dodging her phone calls, you know, oh, I fell asleep, coming up with excuses, lying, right? His wife had a constant and open access to his phone when she was home. She was always on his phone because she was using her phone for content, right, to film for social media. So she always needed his phone for photographs. She mentioned that in the Christmas video where he was Santa, remember? Where's your phone, Chris? I need your phone for photographs. I get the impression that they had full and complete access to each other's phones. Like, she was always using his phone, right? For her excessive social media interactions and usage. She also apparently did a lot of his sales for him. So some of that was probably on his phone as well. And she probably posted things on his behalf, right? Maybe she did that on his phone. That would be incredibly stressful. Imagine if you have a mistress and she texts you all day long every day, and then your wife picks up your phone to take photos of something, and you know that your mistress could send you a text message at any moment and your wife is staring at your phone screen. He was really relaxed, like, all the time. No, I bet he was stressed out of his goddamn mind. 24/7, 24/7, right? That I can't imagine anything more stressful or anxiety inducing than having your mistress possibly any second could text you while your wife is holding and using your phone. From memory, he was with NK while he was receiving phone calls from Shanann. He would either call her back when he left, went home, left or went home from Nicole's or their date or wherever, or he would go outside and call her back and talk to his wife while he was with Nicole. Like, at her house, he would go out on the street and call Shanann back. That's not stressful. He was relaxed all the time. I don't think so. And it's funny because it's indicated in the language that you have to allow for the possibility that that's not true, that he wasn't relaxed all the time and that he was never worked up. He definitely did get worked up, right? And I still think that was an argument. But the really relaxed all the time, nah, man, I bet he was stressed to the max 24/7 because he was having an affair. There's no way he could possibly have been, like, really relaxed, like, all the time, right? Especially when he was with Nicole, knowing he was lying and cheating and using vouchers for dinner, etc. with Nicole, and work cards so that his wife wouldn't get So he was even using vouchers and gift cards from work so that his wife wouldn't get notifications from the bank when he used their card to go on dates and buy things for his girlfriend and dinners for his girlfriend. He was so stressed that he wouldn't even use his own bank account. He was using vouchers because he was so scared of getting busted. That's really relaxed, like, all the time? I don't think so. Shanann literally got text notifications when he spent money from their account. So... And at home, worrying about his wife seeing something on his phone, he would have been stressed all the time. Paranoid, completely paranoid. She needs us to believe he was relaxed all the time and never got worked up about anything. Why? Doesn't everyone get worked up about stuff sometimes? She also didn't know him very long. She wouldn't really know if he was relaxed all the time or if he was never worked up about anything because she only knew him for a short time. He lived with someone else. She didn't spend that much time with him, so they spent 5 or 6 weeks together while Shanann was away, and that wasn't every day because they still went to work and stuff, right? So it wasn't all day every day. A great deal of those days would have been work days where she goes on to say they didn't work together. She literally says that later. We didn't work together, or she says it, she's already said it. So it was just like when they ran into each other in the hallway, right? Because they didn't work together. So they just randomly passed each other in the hallway, and he went home to his wife and family after work. On weekends, he would have been home with his family and his wife. It's incredible the way she's speaking about his behavior and patterns as if she spent a substantial amount of time with him. 6 weeks is 1.5 months. 8 weeks is 2 months, right? So she didn't know this guy more than, is it 3 months according to her? Like, she didn't know him longer than 12 weeks. That's 3 months maximum. But she's talking about him like she's his wife. It's not even longer than a probationary period at work for a new job. It's quite impressive, the level of self-absorption. More narrative of how wonderful and helpful she is. She's so knowledgeable. She knows him so well that she can't describe him at all. She knows him so well, she cannot describe him at all, except for saying he's an introvert, but he's not like that much of an introvert. Don't believe her here, okay? And I want to know why she needs us to believe he was so calm and relaxed all the time. We and she at this point know that he's done what he's done to his whole family. So what she's saying doesn't make sense. And she'll go on to contradict this later. So I'm not even sure if she realizes or remembers what she said here, because she does this the whole way through her interview. She contradicts herself, right? She can't keep her fabrications straight. But they didn't spend, like, she's saying that they were together for, she said it wasn't that long, it was like 6 weeks. But then she goes on to say, oh, I guess we knew each other longer. So, you know, maybe it was 8, 9, 10, let's say 12 weeks from when they first met. So June, July, August, September. It's almost 3 months max. Like, it's maximum 3 months that she knew this guy. Only five weeks of that they were together without Shanann. So for the rest of the 12, so what's 12 minus 5? Is that 7? Yeah. So for 7 weeks, so more than half the time that they were seeing each other or talking and getting to know each other, he was living with his wife and kids for more than half of that time, right? So he was going home to his wife and kids. He was spending the night with his wife and kids. He was spending the weekends with his wife and kids. And then his wife and kids went away for 5 weeks. They went away for 5 weeks. So for 5 weeks, they still went to work every day. But instead of him coming home to his wife and children after work for a few hours a day, right, he spent that time with her. But he still went home. He went to the gym or had dinner or whatever. He didn't go, I don't think he went straight to her house from work. I can't remember what he said. He did say that in his interview. I can't remember if he said he had to get up early to go home to get ready for work. So he went from work straight to her house, spent the night, then got up early, went back home, showered and got ready for work and went to work from home. So he might have been going straight to her house from work. So a few hours in the evening. And she said she liked to go to bed early, right? So a few hours in the evening and then 2 days on the weekend. But he worked a lot of weekends, I think, from memory as well. So she didn't know him that well. She didn't spend that much time with him. Like, they didn't know each other that long, and they didn't know each other that well. She's trying to make it sound like she knows him, and she doesn't. But yeah, how funny. He was really relaxed all the time because, yeah, he was cheating on his wife. He was having an affair, the most stressful situation you could possibly live in 24/7. He was really relaxed, like, all the time. Like, all the time. I just can't. And he was never really, like, worked up about anything. Except when I went ballistic, when I went berserk, then he'd get worked up. But then, you know, but otherwise he was like never really worked up about anything. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm going to finish it up there because I'm starting to be in a lot of pain. But, you know, we could end it on a laugh, so that's good. She cracks me up, man. She really cracks me up. That was good. That was funny. I like that bit. So then we've got coming up is the very much, right? Easygoing guy. Easygoing guy. Very much. Very much. Yeah, no, I'm sure he was an easygoing guy. Yeah, apart from the constant paranoia and stress of the fear of getting caught because he was having an affair, cheating on his wife, right? Apart from that, and apart from when she lost her shit and, you know, went berserk at him and, you know, he had to flee. He had to remove himself from the situation. Apart from that, very much easygoing guy. Very much so. So, did you ever argue, Kevin? Did you ever argue? Nicole, no. Nothing else to say. No. Okay, that is a strong, confident, certain, simple, committed answer to the question. I believe her. I believe that answer. No. No. Oh, so what he actually said was, he didn't say, did you ever argue? That's not what he actually said. What he actually said was, okay, and he was that way with you. Did he ever have any kind of, did you guys ever have arguments? I mean, and then she cuts him off and says, no. Did you guys ever have arguments? Did you guys ever have arguments? So what's the question here, right? Because he's self-edited and chopped and changed here, right? Which doesn't help because she can, if you aren't clear and concise with your questions, then the questionee, the subject, right, that you're speaking to, that you're questioning, can use that to their advantage when they're answering a question. So they can answer it so that you think they're answering it a certain question, but they're actually not, because you've confused the question. So they can pick and choose, and they can formulate an answer to part of the question you've asked, or the parts that they want to answer, or the parts that they interpret. So this is not a good question. But the question that he's actually asked here, because he stops, so it's okay, and he was that way with you. Okay, Kevin, thanks for that. Thanks for your input. Did you ever, right, then stops. Did he ever have any kind of, then he stops again. Did you guys ever have arguments? I mean, and she says no, right? I think I went into this a little bit in the last video as to why I think she can say no to that, okay, right? We'll go through that in a second. Kevin, pretty short relationship. No arguments during that time. That is not a question. That is two separate statements. Neither of those things are questions. Okay? No. So she's not been asked. She's just agreeing with what he said. Okay? She's just pretty short relationship. No arguments during that time. No. Not a direct question. Easier to lie to. Right? And that is a confident, concise, committed, simple no. That's a good answer. It's a truthful answer. Okay? Or a blatant lie. But one or the other, right? If it's a truthful answer, it is a truthful answer. That is a good answer. That is a likely truthful response. No. Yes. No. The The shorter the answer, the more likely it is to be true, okay? Depending on the question. So important how you ask a question and what question you ask, because he didn't ask a question there. So she's not technically lying if she's answered no and it's not true. He said it, not her, right? Did he ever lose his temper at any time? Never. That never doesn't count because he said ever. So it contextually, it is expected, okay? Right? So that never is not flagged. But it is a little bit persuasive. It's not a no. All right? But because he said ever, which incorporates into the question the time reference, right? Never is an acceptable answer to that, okay? You guys never had a yelling match? No. Truthful answer, truthful response, but also not a question, right? Also not a question. So you never saw him upset or mad. Now she goes into a block. So before we get into the block, we're just going to quickly go through that because that's very interesting. So because no is a good answer to a question, it's a truthful answer, right? That's a very deceiving, very misleading, because he actually hasn't asked questions there. He asked one question, which she said no to. The rest of those questions weren't actually questions, they were statements. So if she says no and it's not the truth, is she telling a lie when it was never a question? Interesting. Right, so did you ever argue? No. Simple. No convincing, no persuasion. Now, the reason I think she's able to say no to that, and I know that that's not true because, well, Chris said they did have arguments, okay? So is Chris a truthful person? Probably not entirely. Is he a liar? Probably. Okay, because we know he's lied. He's told several different versions of his story, okay? Does it mean he can never tell the truth? No. Does it mean he's not telling the truth about that one thing? No. Could that be true? Yes. Okay, right? So he said they argued, which I feel like they probably did, okay? Because I feel like she's very controlling and I feel like she escalates and she goes berserk. That's what I think, personally, my opinion, allegedly, right? So I think the reason she was able to say no to that was because he asked, did you guys together, both of them, ever have arguments? Did you guys ever have arguments? He's also said arguments plural. She could get around that answer by her own subjective opinion, her own subjective perception that maybe they only ever had one argument. So because he's used a plural in the question, she's able to say no to that. And it's not a lie to her, right? Maybe they had one big blow up together. So did you ever have arguments? Plural. No. No. Not a lie. If they only had one, right? That's one way she could get around it. Another way is, and it actually comes out in her block, right? So you never saw him upset or mad. She says no. And there was a couple times we had some disagreements. So the language has changed there. So he said arguments. She said disagreements. Now the change in language indicates a different subjective dictionary. So she was able to say no, they never had arguments because in her subjective dictionary, in her opinion, in her perception of reality, of what happened, of her experience, they had disagreements, not arguments. So that's another way she can get around it. That's why you don't introduce language. You use the subject language, okay? If he had said disagreements, she might have said yes. We'll never know because that's not what happened, right? But she then did use the word disagreements and said they had disagreements, plural. They had disagreements, not arguments. So had he said disagreements here, maybe she would have said yes. If he had worded it different, like if he had said, did you ever have any kind of disagreements or arguments or misunderstand? He could have incorporated a wider scope, like cast a wider net, so to speak, right? To catch more of her language so that she can't easily, because he's specifically used a certain word, she can't easily say no because she would personally, subjectively use a different word for what she would say, what she would class it as. They didn't argue, they had disagreements, right? So that's interesting. Then pretty short relationship, no arguments during that time. He's used the word arguments again, even though this isn't a question, so she can just get away with going along with what he's said because she's not been directly asked, right? And even though it sounds like a question, it is not a question. A question is did, how, what, why, when. They're questions, okay? And not limited to, but they are questions, right? He's just made two statements and he's used the same word, arguments, which she can easily say no. They didn't have arguments, they had disagreements. But also he's not a question. He didn't ask her that. He also didn't ask her, oh yes, sorry, he did ask her this. He did ask her, so did he ever, did is a question. Did he ever lose his temper at any time? Never. I believe her. I believe her, albeit maybe a little persuasive. But because, as I said, he has used the word ever, I can accept that as a truthful answer. And according to most people, not just her, because she's convincing us and she's persuading us that he's such an introvert and he's so relaxed and chilled, right? Speaking to everyone else, they said he was a really easygoing guy, right? He never really lost his temper. And that's probably why what happened. Because he... It's always the quiet ones, right? Isn't that what they say? You guys never had a yelling match. That is also not a question. That is a statement. As I've said in the previous video, I think as well, match implies two people, you know, competing or at least going against each other. You guys never had a yelling match. He's also said never in that question, so she could say never and I wouldn't flag it. However, she said no. Confident, truthful answer. Not a question though. And also, he probably never yelled back. So that is easily a no because of the way the question is asked. Not did you ever yell at him? Did he ever yell at you? Break it down. So she's answering a specific question, right? It's harder to lie to a specific question. It's easier to lie because if he didn't yell back ever, it was just her yelling at him, they never had a yelling match. So that's a truthful answer to her and to everyone, right? This is why you've got to be careful about the questions that you ask. And also try and make sure it is an actual question. What have I got here in my analysis? So, very much instead of just yes, so convincing, persuasion. He's so easygoing and chilled, very much, right? Yeah, I'm going to leave that one there. Did you ever argue? No. Simple, no. No convincing, no persuasion. Because they didn't argue. They had disagreements. He reiterates, no arguments. Nikki, again, no, but he didn't ask a question. He just said, no arguments. Just repeated it back to her, no. Did he ever lose his temper at any time? Nikki, never. Not no, but never. Because of the way he's asked this question, we can't really analyse that never. It doesn't count. We can't flag it, so I'll leave that one and move on. That answer has been, the language has been contaminated because he said ever, right? Like I said before, I'll be a little bit maybe persuasive, but because of the ever in the question, never is an expected response. Kevin, did you ever have a yelling match? Nikki, no. Again, simple no. I believe her with these no answers, but like I said, doesn't mean she never yelled at him, just means he never yelled back, okay? Or doesn't mean that he never yelled at her, it just means she didn't yell back. Could be either way. I'm not supposed to make assumptions or have opinions, right? But because of the language, and he was always chilled, like never, they didn't yell at each other. All right, so we have to allow that one of them possibly yelled at the other, and then the other didn't yell back, but they didn't yell at each other. That's what we would allow for in the analysis. It wouldn't necessarily be that he didn't yell back, okay? It would be one or the other didn't yell back. They didn't yell at each other, right? So that's because I don't want to make an assumption, right? Unless it's in the language, okay? My brain's turning to mush because we're 2 hours now, so this is yeah. It could be in the language and I don't remember, or it could be coming up, or it doesn't matter. We'll just allow for the possibility that it wasn't both of them. So you never saw him upset or mad. Nikki, no. But she doesn't stop there. So this supports the theory that she did see him upset. She did upset him. She did see him upset. He was never really like worked up about anything. He was relaxed like all the time, really relaxed all the time. Never saw him worked up about anything. Yes, you did. Yes, you did, because did you ever see him? You never saw him upset or mad. Also not a question, but so you never saw him upset or mad. Nikki, no. But she can't leave it there. Because she did see him upset or mad, because she upset him, right? She can't say no and leave it. She then goes on to say they had disagreements, because not arguments, remember? She can't say just no to that because it isn't the truth. So she goes on to explain and persuade and convince. No is not strong enough on its own here, so we have to allow for the possibility that she did, in fact, see him mad or upset. So the convincing and persuasion earlier makes sense now. He wasn't really relaxed like all the time because she did see him mad or upset. And I believe that it's her that made him mad and upset him. And that's where we're going to leave it for tonight. We made it 2 hours. I didn't think I was going to make it 2 hours tonight. But yeah, so we're getting further into the interview, and the further we get, the more interesting I think it's getting. So yeah, I hope that everyone enjoyed that. I'm really tired. It's the painkillers as well. Like they don't wear off straight away, you know, and I had to take one earlier. I just took one earlier today. Like it wasn't really bad, so I didn't have to take the 2 that knocks me out. But I can definitely notice that I've taken one when I start doing this. It's a little bit, I just feel a little bit spaced out. I don't feel like I'm interacting as much. I don't think I'm as sort of smiling and as animated. I'm kind of just a little bit spaced out, but yeah, anyway, thank you so much for being here. If you've made it to the end, you know how much I appreciate you. Your time is valuable, and I am so grateful that you choose to spend it with me, talking about language analysis and looking into Nikki's nonsense. And I couldn't be happier to be, what would you say, on this journey together? Is it a journey? It's more like a trek. What's something that's less enjoyable and more like harder and rougher? A treacherous journey. Once again, I'm rambling because I don't want to go. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next one.